Says that.
Hi everybody.
Hello.
How are you? Hope you're doing well. I'm Hannah J, and I'm going to be interviewing our broker and co-owner Anthony Licciardello today about real estate video, my favorite topic.
But there's so many things going on.
Yeah, what's new?
Some interesting stuff. They did. My sister did one of those genealogy tests, the DNA stuff.
Yeah, like the Ancestry 23andMe.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny. And obviously it wasn't coming from me directly, but assuming everything, my sister is equally my sister, she actually did it, and she sent over the results, and it came out that I was 57% Greek. If you could believe that. I
can. With a name like Licciardello.
Yeah, that it actually, it was Greek 57 and Italian 21, which is so weird. But that's my...
People think that they know what they are. And
that's my sister has been interested in doing it. And when I saw it, it was like, wow. I said, look. I said, it's kind of shocking to do those tests and see kind of like, Greece isn't that far from Italy. So,
right, same kind of, genetic group.
It's
same
kind
area.
Of funny. But
I did one. I was 97% Northern European. So
go figure.
Yeah,
that explains the good tans in the summer, right?
I tanned pretty well, actually. Yeah, I went to the Jersey Shore with you. I didn't burn. I was the only one who didn't burn.
Oh, that's great.
Surprise, surprise.
That was for the video on the shore.
The Jersey Shore, yeah, after Hurricane
recovery.
Sandy. We did a Hurricane Sandy recovery video, and I was the only one not looking like a lobster the next day.
Right, that was always fun. But anyway,
fun.
To the topic of the day.
Yes, let's jump right in. We basically, we've seen so much change in online video, even in the past 2 years, 5 years, it's just changed so much. So businesses are taking it more seriously now, wouldn't you say?
I mean,
how do you think businesses like real estate are using video to connect with their audience today?
Well, obviously, in the modern era, social media having such a huge market share of video attention. As you see, entertainment. And how people have changed their entertainment repertoire as Facebook and YouTube and things like that have become more of the mainstay of viewership. It's becoming more mainstream to the point where businesses, especially real estate, now have the access to communicate with people in ways that they never thought possible.
Right.
But as far as having the advantage of being able to connect with people is kind of giving them a sense of what it is they're looking for out of the person they're going to be dealing with in real estate. So you develop great personalized relationships with people, and that's unique. That's unique to the industry in many ways. So, but it's believe it or not, it's in its infancy stages. So it really becomes interesting to see exactly with the advent of technologies. We're going to get into a few of them that you really have a real keen into expressing your knowledge and basically answering and evolving questions that come up very quickly. The speed at which people get the information now is now more accessible to consumers, and getting to know the people who actually are going to be dealing with the people maybe not tomorrow, but in the future. So from the real estate perspective, it is a very clear, very clear advantage to what we do here in this company, which is dedicate a huge amount of resources to getting our programming and reaching out to so many people, which you've been a part of for quite a while. So it's always the advent of this of video is coming into be mainstream in real estate.
Well, I think people more and more are just, they're not reading as much. They want to watch things online. And I think, first of all, it puts a face to your company. And second of all, it entertains people as it informs them. And so I think as a modern company, let me know if you agree with this, as a modern company, you're going to be left in the dust if you're not using video.
Yeah, I mean, you think about what Access is now the fact that we're able to actually broadcast live. You talk about in the era, it's live.
Yes.
And you talk about an era that we're in, and you say to yourself, well, in live video, at one time, and not too long in the distant past, that was only available on 13 channels,
Right.
You're going back to the 90s. So it's...
even in the beginning of the 2000s.
Yeah, I mean, you basically, the avenue is growing. But we want to get more specifically into what we're doing, what we're seeing, maybe some of even Facebook's algorithm shifts. Yes. And everybody knows that your feeds now are not going to be as prominently noticeable, especially when it comes to business feeds, especially when it comes to business feeds, but personal feeds. And I think one of the things that I kind of noticed with the latest feed was, and because obviously we deal with I have a lot of friends associated with the real estate businesses, is that they're trying to diminish the promotional aspects of personal pages. So personal pages are probably, especially if you're in the real estate community, they're going to devalue or show less people what they would consider to be ad-worthy posts inside of personal pages, which is an interesting dynamic moving forward. So you should expect that. The next thing is that even in the business, I mean, the idea is obviously Facebook is consistently looking to monetize operational costs. So I mean, so to reach more people, the idea, the idea is that they want, it becomes, and rightfully so. I mean, they provide a technology. I mean, they obviously have shareholders to entice. So, but it presents different things, which is interesting about real estate companies and what we could perform and why it's important for us to build channels for distribution and for all the work that we kind of put into the channel in general.
Right.
So we have the good reach, and that's the good thing about having what we built here is that you kind of, even if agents haven't been able to establish these things on their own, we've been able to be a great, at least an avenue or a path, and we've had real estate people on before, at least a path into basically getting a chance to use our channel to reach more people.
Yeah, it does definitely help to have an engaged fan base. It's why we're talking to you today, as we're trying to provide value, to our audience. But the new algorithm shifts are essentially favoring sponsored paid posts over organic reach. Yes. So unless you're doing live video, which is kind of in a category by itself, you're not really going to be reaching your followers organically, even if they have liked your page already. So, right. There's talk about how live video is kind of sidestepping that rule and getting around it.
Well, I think one of them is that the cause for engagement now becomes almost direct. I still think there are some technical things with live video that make it a little bit more difficult than other things, including delays and things like that. But in general, as you will see, live video is a path to the most relevant, the most quick, and the most immediate information path that someone will give. So as things are happening live, people tend to draw into that. So I think, when they create an algorithm, and that's one of the great things that I've always been interested in is how algorithms work. But when they do want to have that kind of that level of reach on really relevant stuff, very localized. They're also looking at as engagements as part of that metric, how many people are engaged, and so on and so forth. So I think from that perspective, you definitely get a sense of really where like you could go with this. I mean, you have to understand like how this algorithm is going to play and how you're going to kind of have to adapt yourself to make it fit. So it's definitely big in that sense.
Okay, so live video is definitely a plus. I want to shift into talking about aerial video, which is something that you really were among the first business owners to be using aerial video in your marketing. And I really, like, before I met you, I didn't know anybody that was using it. So it seems like now everyone's rushing to do it. Now you have to get a license. You know, it's gotten more mainstream. But how did you predict that this was going to be so popular?
Here's the funny thing is the very first time I was doing video, it didn't occur to me through an outside source. There was the beginning of some consumer products. I think the Parrot AR drone was the first real consumer drone, but it actually was even before that, where I used to be able to build these things myself. You're going to be shockingly enough. The first few drones were hand built. So basically, I learned.
How big were they?
They were big, and they used multi-rotor stuff, and I was able to make it. I basically built the technology literally out of the box, and obviously, there's a tough take. If you see our very, very early on videos of aerial shots, obviously quality has improved dramatically over that time. But one of the real first things that kind of brought it to the light was Hurricane Sandy. I think one of the things that we did was I think CNN covered us about aerial video after the math of Sandy, and we kind of had like one of the very first paths into it. But I saw it as, and to get into aerial video, and this is, people say this, you know, is it just quirky, or does it have a real purpose to actually getting like a quality value out of it? It's unquestioned that if you have a good cinematic eye, not everything from aerial video means from 1,000 feet in the sky. Right. And I think that's a really, even low level, I mean, we're talking 2 feet off the ground aerial video, and kind of using the types of pans that are associated with this are unachievable by hand or without very sophisticated gimbal equipment, which is and the use of a lot of staff to do that, and kind of making a cinematic view of especially when we're talking about real estate. So right. It kind of minimizes that as being a real key part of producing video. So it lowered the cost, the production cost to create excellent level quality. You can literally get them for $50 now. I've seen those ads. Yeah, I mean those are different than I don't recommend the ones that we use. Yeah. Yeah, I mean we are on about 7 generations of drones. So we've had quite a few of them, and as time has gone on, upgrades to them and things like that are necessary. But besides that, let's talk about it from the value perspective it creates. Right. One of the things that we try to find is that, yes, there's Google Maps, there's Google Earth, and what we call, it's very interesting how much different they are when you compare video to getting like just an above shot, or at very best, you know, you get kind of a 45-degree, 39-degree angle at the ground, but it does not give you perspectives, which is because it's done by satellite. So satellite obviously being focused downward, and at best, the shape of the Earth, you can only get at about maybe 39% of an angle to get. So you don't really get full spectrum views. So the difference between aerial video in that sense is you get so if, say, I want to highlight a neighborhood, right, and you develop a story around the neighborhood, proximity to things in a real type of sense is really important, which you cannot do with a typical Google Map application. No. And what you could do is basically from locations, you could develop a much better spectrum of the area. So if I'm filming in Dongan Hills, basically you could follow all the way through to the Verrazano Bridge, looking through from the point of reference all the way to the bridge. So
that shows the value of the area.
Yeah, it
more
shows.
Than just Google
yeah, because you get more of a perspective view than you wouldn't otherwise. So when you get a perspective view, you give people a sense, a little bit more of where things are in proximity to it, which you kind of can't get from what we call a 3D mapping situation, or even at the very best ones, there's limitations because of satellite. But you talk about the space within the air, and you know what? These things can't even be achieved by helicopter. It's interesting. There's kind of like this one dimension. If you cut space down into spaces of where video has been able to be taken, and you kind of look at like that 400 to multiple thousands of feet in height. But when you start getting under that 400, which is the legal limit for these, you don't go above 400. FAA regulations, you don't go over 400 feet. And I'm telling you, the value isn't over 400 feet. The value is under 400 feet.
Right.
Because that's the spectrum that really very few videos can be taken at, is that maybe 200 to 300 feet.
Yeah, and 400 is excessive.
Yeah, at that point, you're almost as good as
being in an airplane.
Yeah,
right?
You're not getting much more than the Google Map situation.
Yeah.
But I mean, to the degree you get a spectrum of things. But the big issue here is that what this does is the other part, which is like if you're doing, in a sense, commercial real estate, or you're doing things like that, is traffic flows. Traffic flows and understanding the dynamics of what's going to happen around locations in types of, which is not something that you could do by any other means. So if you want real-time information about what exactly is happening around locations, it's an important quotient to know how value if it's commercial, even if it's residential to a degree, is the traffic pattern something that's suitable to me?
Right.
How does it look? So we are watching traffic in real time, and we're kind of saying, well, and when I say real time, meaning real time at the time and place it's taken, you're getting a real time view of it. Live, which will be something, believe it or not, the components to do live video for drones is already here. I mean, at this point,
which is so
due to regulations, we can't perform that task. But what's going to happen is that drone video now, through various uplinking, could actually happen live. So if somebody says, well, I want to see XYZ property, and I want to see it now, and give me the real-time view of it, and the capability at this point is that could be done. So they could actually be sitting just like they are right now watching this. They could actually watch exactly live feed as it's happening of what's happening around the location. And the thing is, we already have the capabilities to do that. The regulations don't permit us to do that, which is something that will be addressed. I think in the next few years, as this technology evolves, it's going to be it's going to open up markets in ways that have never been achieved before.
We're going to put helicopter pilots out of business.
And I think that's a lot of the push is that's the reason why you see so much of the regulation. To be honest with you, I mean, that's regulation in this particular thing. I've had some issues with.
Yeah.
I mean, because
a fear thing. People are scared of it because they don't really understand the implications.
They worry about privacy, but privacy essentially. I mean, you have Google. You're being satellite viewed from every angle, and they practically watch you tie your shoelaces in your backyard.
Yeah, anytime you walk outside
with stuff that you don't see. So
you give up your rights to
I always say
privacy.
it's not the stuff you see that should bother you. It's the stuff that you don't know it's there that's filming and videoing. But the big thing for homeowners and for the real estate professionals is that adaptation of these things, especially from company perspectives, making the proper infrastructure to manage and like how I say is when we looked at when we built the company, was to be flexible enough to understand what we need to do today, but create platforms of tomorrow. And when you're able to accomplish that, which as a body, you got to look at the consumer focus as being part of the investment structure, what you're trying to do as a company. And unfortunately, one of the biggest things is that you have to have foresight. You have to want to see that these are the emerging technologies that are going to transform and shape the market. And a lot of times when you look at real estate and you look at the real estate businesses, most of the stuff is not thought of through, it's purchased outside of the arena of the brokerage itself. So this is where the lack of control over how your business is going to move and operate based on using what I call vendor platforms to do everything just subjects you to be the same as everybody else. The real question is whether you set the parameters for actually doing business in a way that you set the tone, you understand the marketplace, your limitations are only limited to your imagination and to your best perspectives versus just having the market kind of dictate what you can and you can't do with it. Which we'll get into some of the other platforms, which they're out there, like VR platforms, which are interesting. It's an interesting part of what we call the video world, and how that's going to impact real estate in the future. We've had some discussions off camera about what that means for people and whether VR does offer an opportunity to the degree it's necessary. Why I specifically haven't, well, it's rather ineffectively, as far as cost to do, it's not extremely expensive. But the question really becomes is whether or not VR technology will be something that will be implemented. But there are nuances to what I call to what we need to be performing as real estate companies and agents. How does that best reflect ability? And that's where the trade-off becomes interesting, because the interesting thing for real estate companies in general is the dichotomy between every transaction is represented by an interest. Now, how each, and it's the question that's never asked, is how does one may service the angle of the buyer perspective, one may service the angle of the seller perspective. The question really becomes here is whether or not those things in conjunction are actually going to make a difference in how your representation to the person you're selling or buying is going to help them. And that's a really interesting question moving forward.
Let's I just want to define virtual reality in terms of real estate tours, just in case anybody doesn't know. So essentially you can visit 123 Main Street will have its own page. You can click on the box for a virtual reality tour. They actually have a 360-degree camera that they put in various parts of the house that, just like Google, will take a panoramic shot of every room in many places. So you can click through and you can see every corner of this house, good and bad. Nothing is left up to the imagination. So what does that mean for real estate marketing? Is that good or bad for the seller?
Yeah. Well, we have two perspectives. Are we marketers, or are we marketing property? Defining this becomes really difficult. Because to the degree you want to service buyers, to the degree you want to service sellers.
Right.
The first thing is when you take a listing agreement, you have to your first obligation is to the seller. And the interesting thing is when you talk about marketing, people just think marketing is stuff that's out there. It's not thought of what does it mean, how does this impact it. We take very, very careful looks at engagements and whether the engagements are right for the people we represent versus just being out there as well. You could get 60,000 views with everything that's wrong with the marketing.
Right.
Marketing has unfortunately become the one thing that we have to define better as to what that exactly is. It's not just numbers, and we equate, and that's, somebody will say, well, we get 60,000 hits, but if I get 60,000 hits on something that looks horrible or doesn't represent the seller in the best light, is that really good? And that's, and this is where I think when we tried to define what we did here, and was the one difference, we did not use platforms like Zillow and Trulia as a mainstay, because I didn't think from that intrinsically, as a company who is taking listings for marketing properties, our job was just to put it out there in any medium without consequence to what that medium was going to be.
And you didn't see the value in Zillow and Trulia.
I mean, you want to create different spheres for people to view things, and you want them to view them in the best light possible to get people to want to come to this house for very specific reasons. And sometimes those reasons we need to entertain. I mean, to a degree that marketing has an entertainment value is we got to create a lore for what we sell, or else what are you selling? Selling stuff, and this is where defining marketing is just selling stuff, and it's not just stuff. There's a very, very, very we look at every aspect, mainly how this is going to be represented in the marketplace as being part of what they're going to be doing going forward. So it really becomes important to understand that when you look at marketing from that perspective,
selling a house is not just stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's just then the right questions, and we did this around the right questions being asked. But this is where I think when you separate good companies from average or setting bars and things like that, these are the types of things that I think make a big difference in terms of whether or not you're going to get the most out of what you're selling. And it has to be represented right in the marketplace by people who understand what marketing is. I do not believe for a good part of what we're doing here that you're actually seeing that. I see too many times that we focus on, this was seen 60,000 times. Meaningful communication is not just about mass. And that's where people get this wrong. It's not about mass, it's about right. So, and VR, because we're getting off the topic of VR. So VR, for a lot of if you want to know the essential point of view, I mean, you think about VR in the sense that there is nothing to an imagination. We talked about whether or not
the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Whether or not, if you're going on a date, would the nostrils be something you could look at before?
Yeah, would you look up someone's nostrils before you go out on a date with them? Do you need to know that part of their body?
And that's the problem is that do you appeal to the emotional parts of home ownership in the way that isn't. You're not trying to look. You don't want to distract the buyer, but sometimes things that would be overlooked. Seeing the whole
picture, if they focus on
this is the part of housing that makes it so much different than other things that you sell. Is that
the control is kind of taken out of the seller and the marketer's hands. No.
Yes, it's all perceptual based at that point.
Right.
So there's no really communication. There's see what you get.
Yeah.
And whether that visualization is going to do it or not is basically whether that house is going to sell or not. It's not going to be highlighted in such a way it's
not showing it in the best light. And they could be focusing on something that's really not a big deal at all, but they don't get the full picture.
Right. But that's not saying that those tools aren't useful. Mm-hmm. I think this is where the tool is better used. It's not in the initiating marketing. It's after the interest has been driven. So if you have what I say, the interest level driven, and they're going to take the next step of going in, that's a step for VR. VR is great but it shouldn't be what I call the first step in.
It should be a deciding factor.
Right. It shouldn't be, well, I'm going to walk in on this or not. It's, the first thing is no matter what, you're not going to scare. I mean, the house will show itself as it is. Appeal, is something that we as marketers need to generate. You have to generate appeal first. You have to. I mean, you generate the appeal, and then with that, there'll be tools that you could kind of provide within this where VR is very much a very, probably a better functional tool in that respect. I don't think, though, from an initial marketing perspective, that's marketing. It's a marketing, but marketing is just too broad a term that's often used. What you're marketing. Yeah. There's different aspects to marketing, and I go over this 1,000 times. Marketing is not one word. There are 60 aspects to marketing, and each one of them are it goes the gamut. Proactive marketing, reactive marketing, viral marketing,
video marketing.
But each one of them have their nuances, and you have to play to those specific audiences, knowing what they're going to kind of see and how to dictate a little bit of the stuff that we need to do as agents in the selling process. So, is it good? I think it's a good thing. I think where it's phased in is probably not the best.
Not for generating interest anyway.
Well, like I said, if you're going to say someone, and I told you I saw our VR tour, you walk through a house and you go through the VR, and I saw a house with a whole bunch of holes in the wall with spackle.
Right. But the holes aren't there anymore.
But you see, the thing is that now I have to ask myself, if I see that an initiating step in the sale, is that something that someone's going to overlook from? Because there's a different experience from VR than it is in person. That you don't tie in all the aspects of kind of the other aspects of why you purchase a house. So you start looking at very aesthetic things without getting a feel for spatial differences. Is this the right space, and is this enough to detract or not detract me from purchasing? So, but in an application sense, where if someone's in a distance thing that they can't physically go, yes, these are excellent tools for that. So I do think that the advent of VR will not be maybe in the initial sales and using for the initial marketing or for the presentation marketing. I should really put it as part of the initiating stage of selling. It is a process of selling that's probably a little bit deeper than the next level into the marketing aspect as drawing someone a little bit further who maybe not have access. But you really want to encourage people to get the emotional feel for that.
Right. No, I gotcha. I wanted to talk a little bit more about the other side and what we do, which is we have on-camera talent host in-house video tours. We've been doing it for a number of years now.
Some of which you have done.
Yes, some of which I have done. Probably, everything from the past couple of months was hosted by me. But we have
so many other talented.
We've had other talents as well. Probably will soon in the future, possibly. We're really the only company that does it to the degree that it is done here. What kind of value do you think these full HD hosted video tours provide for buyers and for sellers?
Well, I think from buyers, what you try to do is. Our first mission is and continuing piggyback is how do we gain perspectives in ways that best represent the client's interest in the sale. So from that perspective, our job is clearly to highlight the best aspects of why this particular house. Not only that, let's just say there's 5 houses similar in the marketplace for that. How do we kind of draw a distinctive value proposition for the house we list than the other ones in comparison? So what you want to do, what I really saw is the benefit of doing this was you want to create separation in the sense that we need to create appeal beyond its competing houses to help this person get the most out of that property. But there's a good part of it is that when you have trained talent and you have people who know how to do it and do it well, and it's just a good presentation piece to help in the advancement of promoting that listing. So you get the right people the biggest thing, and I will say the deficit to this is, and I think when you talk about video and you talk about why we use more on-camera talent, because you go on, see online, and you see people with a smartphone try to do this in a very haphazard way, which doesn't, and this is where I go into whether you're trying to gain critical mass by just creating a spherical sphere of influence just on because it's there. Is it actually achieving the result besides knowing that, or is it doing something else? So you have to, the quality control is part of why we do it, because you want the quality control to kind of say, we got to make sure that when we're on video, this is best reflective of what we want people to see.
Yeah,
we have a lot
of control over the angles.
Right. So right, there's a lot of thought that goes, but when someone's going, so our job is constantly to be in the best light in the perceptions that we want to create about a particular property.
Right.
Not that it's just there.
Right, and we don't tell lies. I mean, all of it is true. I just want to, because I want to differentiate. Some people think sales and marketing.
She's really a truther. She doesn't stand too far from the truth. Of course it is.
Trying to. A lot of people see sales and marketing as twisting the truth, but it's not twisting the truth. It's presenting it in the best light possible. We, everything is factual. We're not hiding anything.
Yeah, it's. Yeah, I mean that's a given. I mean, as an ethical obligation, that's something we have to do, as an ethical obligation. But we do have a fiduciary obligation, which is how do we represent the seller best in the marketplace?
Right.
And we have to draw distinctions between who and why we're doing that. So if it doesn't behoove someone to draw interest on the fact that the house has lime green carpets and and yellow walls,
that may not be the best home tour.
I mean, right, it might not make for the best home tour. So I mean, but they exist out there, and so I mean, but you have to you try to make light of the home's selling points. So if we take a look at like some of the things that wouldn't be a benefit to selling is that we could kind of generate a sense of emotional appeal that kind of drives the viewer to come and let's not overlook, but grab the emotional sense that this house has potentials. And you're kind of displaying those potentials through the best parts of what the home has to offer. So even though you may be showing an aerial, now it's very important for everything to kind of tie in here. So with the aerial perspective, with the internals perspective, we try to give a best overview of everything associated with the home. So it's, but we do want to appeal to a buyer for their potential, to see the houses that we sell for their potential, not just that it's there. And that's the big difference between taking the time to market the correct way and spending the kind of resources that we do to get achieved, and just kind of winging it on views, or that equates to the best result possible. It's nice to get views. It's not great to get views on something that looks horrible. Well, it's not going to
or to get views on something that's not a return on your investment.
Right, I mean, it's just...
You want to show it to the right people.
Sometimes the view is the person doing it, not the house.
Yeah, refresh.
But I mean, it's...
Robots,
it depends on all that stuff. But, these are all interesting topics. But again, video will define things moving forward. Yeah,
so moving forward, this is my last question for you. Mm-hmm. Where do you see the future of online video headed in the next 10 years? Or even 5 years?
Where I see video going,
particularly for business.
First, I think in the initiating sense, there's a lot of noise. I think in the essence of, you have to look how all things kind of evolve in video and in YouTube and in other industries in general. You get what I call consolidation points. So as the good companies start beginning to harness the technologies of video, they will begin to act in as larger mass channels for distribution, which is an interesting take because the companies like Facebook, for example, is changing their algorithm, and the interesting thing is that to monetize, and remember, we're using somebody else's platform to do this on. So to monetize platforms and the people who don't do it well, and to cut down on noise to make sure user engagement stays high, because it's in the interest of these companies to keep user engagements high in order to sustain their own operational value to consistently generate new talent. So the interesting thing is that it's an investment. It really is. When you talk about, just to kind of put in perspective, we've assembled somewhere on the order of, I don't know, almost 30 or 40 terabytes of video. Of data.
I can attest to you. If I could show you right now, our hard drives are this big, they're 3 terabytes a piece. We got like 8 of them.
Yeah, so I mean, the amount of video and video collection, and we have one of the largest assortment of varying video from assortment of things. But again, these are going to become sole distribution channels, which is now going to add another element to businesses that are adapting to this. So, you know, as I see the future of this, I see that as live video becomes more pressing a thing to do, it's buzzworthy now, but there's going to be very few people who are going to be able to do it with a sense of quality that's going to be necessary to ensure viewership over a longer period of time. It's in its advent stages. It's just like everything else. Broadband being a big part of it. But so while I see live video being a lot like NBC of maybe 1985, where these distribution channels become large enough that they sustain their own presence. People tune in as part of a regular. So, I mean, I do see that evolving. And I do see that the systems that these are evolving on will be more generated toward the best, what I call best usage, and using these channels appropriately to deliver a message while kind of getting to a bigger picture for Facebook, for YouTube. So metrics are going to be key in that as it's in its infancy. Yeah. So right now you're not going to get huge amounts, I mean, unless you're Donald Trump or something extremely political or viral in that sense. You don't more on the controversial side. I mean, a lot of times these things are more novelty at this point, but they will gain mainstream stay, and I think there'll be consolidations of video, and the companies that are adapting to it early on, and more or less using quality controls to move that forward, are going to have key advantages. It's in this. If they're not doing this, I don't see the areas of distribution being. They're basically going to be cut off. So, you know, it's like everything else. Early adopters of video are going to be at the forefront. The difference between, and this is where the difference in separation is that unlike, you know, web presence, video doesn't have the ability to be skewed by outside forces that don't really understand the comprehensiveness. So they'll get to know, when consumers get to know people for their competent and competency, and they start seeing competency as part of the metric, not just flashy verbiage and, you know, a lot of flash and a lot of just single flat-faced things that say I'm great or whatever it may be. They're actually in tune.
You can actually show them.
Well, I mean, they're in tune to what you're saying, and they understand that you know what you're actually talking about.
Right.
And these are going to be the selling things of the future. So for real estate people, it's really a chance for the ones who are early adapters, a chance to kind of say, hey, I mean, I could really display competency in ways that I never could before, and this is an avenue to do it. Blogging was at one time, which I was extremely successful in.
Yeah, this is actually, that's another thing that I wanted to bring up is, whereas SEO, which uses blogging largely, that's kind of dependent on, have you been doing this for 10 years? You're never going to catch up if you start a blog today. But video, on the other hand, you could go viral overnight. So it's not really the same rules. It's interesting.
It's not the same rules, and the idea of the ghostwriter is removed.
That's true too.
So the
you can't
being
put a mask
authentic,
on someone.
Yeah, someone can't come in and say, "Well, we're going to hire somebody to go write for what we think is best for us."
Right.
Now you really have to display what you know in terms of, without grabbing some articles that are plagiarized and kind of throwing them up there with your own take.
To show your face.
It does take guts to show your face. That's absolutely true. And and more or less try to even demonstrate that in a sense that you're competent. And I don't think
there's not much to hide at that point.
Yeah. So I do think that in light of the things that competency is the best thing that's going to be sold through that thing, through the medium we're using.
This little camera right here.
Yeah, and the sun's like kind of glaring in on us now.
Yeah, it's kind of like changing. I noticed we got darker, now we're lighter. What's going on?
It's a change of seasons.
No, it went behind the clouds, I think. No, just in this video itself, I'm saying.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, you're the technical expert on video.
Yeah, we're bright again now.
But what we're going to say is this. Video is, and the adaptation of video is going to be the future of real estate. And you all need to hop on that train, because here's what.
Get left in the dust.
Yeah, and it's a good beginning process. And the thing is that learning about how to do this and doing it correctly, it's not just about doing it. You have to really master the craft of doing that. Believe me, even doing live video for me wasn't the easiest. Even in your first couple of go-arounds, I'm sure over time you kind of get used to.
Definitely not easy. You feel a little bit naked sitting here. you can't hide. You can't hide anything.
Well, that would be a problem. But you have to understand that in this, you are you,
and you don't get a do-over.
There's no cuts, and there's no
do-overs.
No kind of like cut here.
Yep, no editing, no spell check, none of that.
Yeah, and even those like mispronounced words that you kind of hit off on once in a while. So you have to kind of look at those things. But it's always entertaining to talk to everybody, and we'll be doing this once a week.
Yes.
At least. I'm sure agents now, we're trying to get them enticed about coming up and doing things live.
Joining us.
Yeah, and then kind of seeing that we could, you could do it. But the big thing is that we are excited about doing these things in the future. We're excited about bringing you the best content we could possibly give you. And
we want to keep
we are going to go into, I think in the next run, I didn't even tell her yet, but what we're going to be talking about next week. So next week will probably be something that you probably completely won't understand.
We'll figure it out.
So it'll be one of those segments where she doesn't, where's he going with this? I don't even know where I'm going with this at this point. But
I'd like to know.
The thing is that at the end of the day, is that you're going to get a sense of what we are working on, the technical ends of real estate at SciNY.com, and some of our big plans and big adventures, and how to kind of get that big spot off my head virtually. So
lean forward a little bit, or lean back.
She's right there. But anyway, thank you again for watching. We'll see you again next week, same time. Well, maybe the same time. If I decide in the midst of whatever I'm doing, I can fit it in amongst the craziness.
It might be Thursday. We're talking about doing Thursdays.
Thursday. It'll be next week. We'll let you know.
Next week.
We'll probably formalize it more, and we'll be going, see back there, outside. Outside's a lot more fun. And it's a lot more cool. So,
yeah. Soon we'll be outside.
Yeah,
it's cold.
I'll do 50. Soon. But anyway, have a good one. We'll see you next time.
Have a good one.
Signing off.
Use video, guys.